Hello and welcome to Friends That Invest. You're joined today by your host, Sim. I'm a financial author and investor, and I'm here to tell you everything you need to know about investing in personal finance. Now, in today's episode, I'm doing a bit of a reflection episode where I'm answering some of your most asked questions about my financial independence retire early journey. Now, if you're new to the podcast, you might not know this, but in this year of 2026, I reached my FIRE number, my financial independence retire early number, where I knew that if I hit a certain amount invested, I could start pulling down like 150K, sometimes more, sometimes less, but 150K every single year. And this was enough money to cover the daily expenses of me and my husband. So we have a household of just us two. And so technically I reached FIRE. And I was so excited because it had been such an important part of my financial journey. I wanted to achieve FIRE since I had learnt about it, and I had only learnt about it in 2020 when I started working. And I was like, I can't do this forever, guys. Like, how do I get out? And so I came across Mr. Money Mustache. But since my announcement of FIRE happened, there's been a few interesting learnings that I have had along the way. The first was the expectations of FIRE and what reality actually looked like. If you had asked me in 2020 my expectations of FIRE, I would have said, I just want to own my own home. I want to have $1 million or $2 million invested, and I want to be able to draw down $100,000 a year. And that's all I need. And I will stop working because it is hard going to work every single morning. I was an optometrist and my time was very much tied into my role. If I was sick, because I would have health problems, if I was sick or I just wake up and I'm like, I don't really want to work today. It was so annoying for my patients because if I took a day off, that's 10 or 12 people who have to reschedule their eye tests. And that's annoying for them because they usually have to ask for time off to go and see their optometrist. So all in all, it was annoying for me. It was annoying for my manager. It was annoying for my patients. And I just didn't enjoy that level of inflexibility. I also didn't enjoy that my salary was going to be capped at maybe $120,000, maybe $140,000, which sure is a lot of money when you are a young person, but I like nice things. I still want a nice home. I want a nice car. I want to travel. And in this day and age, $120,000 pre-tax, especially when I was just a single person, that would not have gone very far for the lifestyle that I wanted. And I was just so excited to reach FIRE. I didn't know if I could ever do it. I hoped I could, but it was the expectation of not having to work, going to the beach. I imagined my dream life, and it was me with some dogs, old dogs, living on a beach and just walking my dogs. And that was going to be my life. And so fast forward now in 2026, very quickly was I able to reach FIRE. And a huge part of that was building businesses on the side of FIRE. So building out Friends That Invest, building out my speaking, having a best-selling book, and having other businesses where I was doing advisory work for startups and consulting and helping people with their own social media for their own brand. So it was a lot of different things that I was doing, but it was mainly Friends That Invest that was the biggest growth engine for my salary. And then I invested almost all of that money. Once I paid my taxes and paid the team, anything I was making, I was just investing it consistently over the years. And then I reached my FIRE number, and the reality of FIRE and not having to work anymore was so different, because if you are the kind of person like you and me, listen, you are watching or listening to a podcast on investing and money. We are very similar. We love productivity. We love aiming higher. We love lifelong learning and learning new things. We're very similar people. And I promise you that if you are similar to me, then the idea of doing nothing is more of a good holiday idea as opposed to doing nothing forever. And I started noticing that I was almost feeling guilty for not being productive. I remember once I called up my husband and I was like, honey, I have driven to the gym and I have sat in the car for an hour scrolling on Instagram, and I have not gone into the gym, And I feel so guilty because it's 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I have just done nothing. I've not been productive. I've not contributed anything to the world. And I just feel like a crappy person. Like I feel guilty that I'm not doing anything. And he was like, that is so freaking unhealthy. Like you need to work on that. And I was like, I know, I hear it. But my productivity has been so tied to my self-worth. And I could use that time and fire to like unravel that and fix that. But I don't necessarily want to. And so I realized that despite reaching fire and being like, I'm financially retired and I'm retired at 29 and like, how freaking cool is that? I realized the actual thing that brings me joy is building things and growing. And so I actually ended up removing the like fire retired by 29 like label off my Instagram. And like, I put it on my LinkedIn, guys, like how insufferable. But it was everywhere. And I like removed it because I was like, I don't actually want to identify as someone that's stopped working at 29 because there is so much joy that I get from like just being the kind of person that learns new things and tries new things. And yes, you can do that in ways that don't require you to like build businesses or work. But I find that business is one of the best ways to create change. Like my two most successful businesses have been Friends That Invest and The Indian Feminist. They're both businesses. They both make income, but they're also in a way social enterprises where the business helps create hopefully a level of like social good within communities. Like The Indian Feminist was all about shining a light on the issues that South Asian women face in the diaspora and how we say we've come so far, yet, the preference for male babies still exists, dowry still exists. With Friends That Invest, information has become democratized, and yet there's still a level of girls don't understand money, girls are not good with finances, like, girl math. Like we've just continued to not move the needle forward in terms of young women thinking that they can be good with finances. And so both businesses have had like a impactful background. And so I find myself still wanting to do that. And I think the largest amount of impact I can make is through building businesses like these, as opposed to like retiring and kind of, sitting around and volunteering in other ways. But you can still do both. Like I've still started volunteering more, but I like this. Like a podcast that can reach hundreds or hundreds of thousands of people, I think has more of an impact in terms of volume of people that I can help. And so I like that. I'm happy with that. Now, this also would not be a Friends That Invest podcast if I didn't address like some of the controversy. And my God, there was a lot of controversy on calling myself financially retired or mentioning that I was financially retired. There were people on like both ends of the spectrum. Some people I noticed were like, well, I don't really understand what retired means. Like, do you stop working? And then I realized like they didn't really understand FIRE, like the idea of financial independence, retire early, where you have enough money to retire, but you don't necessarily have to stop working. You just work on things you enjoy. But then at the same time, I was like, well, I am still running Friends That Invest, even though my day to day is, not a lot of work. I'm not at my desk 40 hours a week. I have an amazing team that runs a lot of the business, whereas I get to just focus on the content, which is fun for me and honestly doesn't feel like work. But then I realized like how that comes across. And I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't use financial independence, retire early. Maybe I should just focus on financial independence, because I haven't completely retired if the definition of retirement is like staying at home and walking my dogs and like not participating in the workforce whatsoever. So I was like, okay, that's fine. But then the other like controversy that kind of came in, which I thought had like a level of validation to it, where some people were like, how can you say you're like fired, but then you're still running a business? And are you using your retirement strategy as a way to get more people to listen to your podcast or get more people to join into your programs or whatever that looks like? And to be honest, like I understand that criticism, and I actually like do see where they're coming from, because there are times where like my content does get a little bit clickbaity, but I always try to justify it by saying, well, if you see something and it's clickbaity and you watch it, then you can actually like get the value in the episode and you can actually watch the episode and learn something. But like in a sea of so much content out there and so many more podcasts and so many more YouTube videos, I just need to I need to cut through the noise to get you to be like, oh, wait, that's interesting. Let's click on it. And then you actually learn valuable things like dollar cost averaging and putting your money away slowly and, not living lavish lives and saving and investing and building businesses. And so all those really valuable things come in after. But if my titles of the podcast or the content was I'm a person, let me share with you the 7 strategies to invest, it doesn't, I've tried them, they don't reach as many people. But in saying that, I get the feedback, I take it on, and I'll try and make the content less clickbaity and less I've retired at 29, because I see how that can come across. And it's a pretty good life if the only problems that I have right now is, are my titles clickbaity or not? So I take that with a lot of privilege, where I'm this is a very, very lucky place to be. Because I remember what it was like working my 9 to 5, and I did not enjoy the stress associated with that. And I did not enjoy having my Christmas leave declined. And now I get to live a life where I don't ever decline my leave. And so far, I've not declined anyone in my team's leave. That's a really important thing for me, that we just have freedom and flexibility. And so what I've really learned from this whole experience, and probably the thing that surprised me the most, is I realized I don't need a life that I am retired from. I just needed a holiday, and I just needed a career that gives me flexibility as if I am retired. And I look at other people in my life that work either a 9 to 5 job or they have a business, and they have flexibility in that job or that business. And that is the perfect sweet spot where you have purpose and you're working towards something and you're working with people and you're problem solving and you're using your brain, but you're also in a high enough position in your job or in a company, or you run the company, where you can go, hey, I need to take the afternoon off, or I'm going to take my laptop and work home from the afternoon, or I'm going to go out and I'm done for this day and I'll pick up the rest of the work tomorrow. And to have a level of flexibility like that is so much more valuable than not working at all in this stage of my life. And so I realized, oh, I don't need to be financially retired where I'm not working. I do like being financially retired where my investments still cover my income, but now I can use that extra money, that $150,000, as a good backup salary if and when I have a bad year in the business, or I'm not making as much, or I'm just tired and I need a sabbatical or a break. It is good to know that it's almost between my husband and me, we almost have a third person in our marriage called the S&P 500 that contributes a salary. And that is a really, really, really privileged position. But to achieve something like that was not done by just luck. And it was not done by just kind of hoping for the best. There were intentional decisions that I made. And while it's not something that's completely replicable, something that can be done in the exact same way, in the exact same time frame, the idea of building a portfolio or a nest egg over a decade or over 2 or 3 decades is absolutely possible. And it is really as simple as increasing your income, keeping your costs low, and just investing the difference. There's no secret formula other than that. So in all honesty, I've enjoyed the very mini retirement. I've enjoyed continuing Friends That Invest. And when people ask me what's next, I always say is this not enough? I have really loved building Friends That Invest. And I just feel that's what I'm probably going to be doing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be 70 years old with gray hair, and I'm going to be hey, Investy Besties, so the market's crashed again. But as you know, we've spoken about for the last 50 years, don't panic sell, write it out, make sure most of your money is in bonds because we're getting close to retiring. And that's just probably where it's going to go. So that is my little life update. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please take a screenshot, put it on your Instagram story, tag Friends That Invest. It is the best way for this podcast and YouTube channel to reach more women that want to learn about investing and getting better with their money. And what better world than a world where more women have financial literacy. So with that, I'll see you next week.